welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany, and today I am doing the Yes Chef tag. Am I the only one that when I hear Yes Chef, I think of Hell's Kitchen and Gordon Ramsay screaming at the people in there and they just have to yell, Yes Chef, back to him, because that was my immediate thought. But anyways, I was tagged in this tag by the lovely Dia at Novel Idea, and this tag was originally created by Bandy's Books. I had actually never heard of her channel before until I was tagged in this tag. So I was looking at her channel and it's amazing. Like, I am so excited that I have found her channel. She does so many really interesting reviews on different books, and a lot of times she will cook recipes that are inspired by the books that she's reading, which is super fun. I love the combination of those two things. So if you have not heard of her channel either, she will be linked in the description of this video. You should totally go check her out. Anyways, on to the prompts. Question number 1 is, have you ever read a book about or written by a chef? If yes, which ones, and did you enjoy them? And the answer to this is kind of no. I've never read any nonfiction books that are about a chef or written by a chef. I have read some fictional books that include characters who are chefs or become chefs. The most recent one that comes to mind is Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto, and this is actually a novella, and it's primarily dealing with grief, but one of the ways that the main character handles her grief is finding comfort in the kitchen and kind of this universal language of food, and she finds a lot of healing from her grief and cooking for others, and at some point she does start culinary school and become a chef. But that is fictional, so it inspires me, this question inspires me to try reading some books that are by chefs, because I've never really looked into it that much other than wanting to read Julia Child's book. And that's been on my TBR for a while. So this tag has got me thinking about that kind of stuff. Prompt number 2, do you notice food descriptions in books? Why or why not? I absolutely do. I actually really love descriptive books in general. I love books that really set the scene and make me feel like I'm really there. So I love atmospheric books, and I love books that have to do with families gathered around tables or dinner parties or different things like that that have elements of food to them, and then they always feel so cozy and sometimes even nostalgic, especially in like classic middle grade books tend to have a lot of really great food descriptions of like parents cooking for children and stuff like that, and it just makes it feel so cozy and atmospheric. So I think that's part of the reason why I love descriptive food things in books, but I think that the other reason why is because I love to cook and I love to eat. So when I read those descriptions, it like makes me want to cook more and makes me kind of excited sometimes to look up recipes or try things that maybe I haven't tried before. Prompt number 3 is, what book have you read that had the best food descriptions? And it's really hard to definitively say the best, you know, because I'm sure that there are books I'm not thinking of right now. But when I think of a book that genuinely makes me hungry every time I read it, that's Farmer Boy by Laura Ingalls Wilder. And all of Laura Ingalls' books have description of the foods that they make. Like Little House in the Big Woods is the first book in the series, and in that they actually make maple candy. When they're like making maple syrup and stuff, they put the maple syrup on the snow and it hardens and it turns into candy. And there's so many descriptive and fun things like that that I've actually done with my daughter, which is super fun. But Farmer Boy takes the cake when it comes to food descriptions, and I think that part of the reason for that is this is a story of Almanzo, Laura's husband, as a boy growing up on a farm. And if you've ever been around boys, especially growing boys, they tend to have very ravenous and voracious appetites. And so there is, I think, even more of a focus of food in this book. And it just is such a great book for food descriptions. Question number 4 is, have you ever been inspired by a book to prepare a specific food or meal? And yes, actually quite a few times. I just mentioned Little House in the Big Woods and making maple candy based on that. We've also made butter based on that book. Reading that, we made our own butter in like jars and shook up the cream until it made butter. The book Sweet Bean Paste also comes to mind, which I guess also could have worked, I guess, for book one, because the main characters, well, both of them are really cooks and stuff. And so it has to do with these sweet pancakes that are sold in Japan that are filled with sweet bean paste. And so after reading that book, I made some of those pancakes at home. And actually it was the very first vlog that I ever did for my channel. So I'll link that. I'm sure it's a little rough in places, but because it's like 2 years old at this point. But I made that as a result specifically of reading that book. And then we've done it for other books. We've read a lot of Korean books, and I read some for Koreadathon last year. And so we've delved into a lot of Korean recipes as well. And my daughter tends to have birthday parties that are literary themed, and one of my favorite ones was when she did a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory one, and we actually like made chocolate bars and did all kinds of like candy type stuff for her birthday. So I am easily inspired by books to make foods that are based either on the time period of the book or that are specifically mentioned in the book. Question number 5 is, do you have a favorite cookbook? I do not. I do not have very many physical cookbooks at all, unfortunately. I actually tend to use food blogs much more frequently. So I will share some of my favorite food blogs and link them below in case you're like me and you like to look up recipes on the internet, especially because sometimes there are tips or things in the comments when someone asks about substitutions or different things like that. And there are lots of reviews that tell you whether or not people liked things or changed things. So I think that's part of the reason why I like food blogs as well. But one of my favorite food blogs, the very first one I think that I started regularly following, was Pinch of Yum. And I've never made anything from this website that was bad. And they have a lot of options for different dietary needs that you can click on, because our family is mostly dairy free. And so that is something that I know how to substitute in recipes now, but they had quite a few recipes that already did the substitutions for me and then kind of taught me how to do that. Another great food blog is Budget Bites. And I love Budget Bites because they kind of estimate about how much it would cost for you to make the meal and are specifically focused on delicious, nutritious, and economically friendly meals. And then lastly, I want to recommend a newer blog that I've really started enjoying, and that's Beyond Kimchi. And this is, as you might guess from the title, a Korean food blog by a Korean person, but she makes lots of other foods as well. It's not always Korean food. Sometimes it's other ethnicities or even American foods. And sometimes she'll do kind of fusions between two different types of food. But her Korean recipes are some of my absolute favorites. I love them so much. Question number 6 is, if you could share one meal with one author, dead or alive, who would it be? And I feel like I should have had to struggle over this question, but I didn't. I immediately knew that my answer would be C.S. Lewis. I've been reading C.S. Lewis for most of my life thanks to the Chronicles of Narnia. And then in my adult life, I've read a lot of other of his fiction books and a lot of his Christian nonfiction books. And I just so appreciate his perspectives and think that he has just so much wisdom. And I think I would just love to sit with him and pick his brain. Although honestly, I would love to just sit in and just listen to like a meeting of the Inklings. I'd be fine with that too. But if I'm picking one person, it would be C.S. Lewis. Question number 7 is, if you had 24 hours to live and you could eat one meal and read one book, what would you eat and what would you read? And both of those questions are so hard. I'm not really sure because I feel like my mood changes a lot in terms of what I want to eat and what I want to read. So, I mean, in theory, it would be whatever I'm most in the mood for. But I can almost guarantee you that the food would be Asian in some way. I think Indian food is probably my favorite. I love curry and I love biryani, and those are probably like my favorite Indian foods and naan. But I also really like Japanese food. Like I love okonomiyaki and ramen, so it's tough, but it would be something like that. And then for my favorite book, again, my moods change, but I would guess that like if I knew I had 24 hours to live, I would want to read something that's very comforting to me. So the first book that came to mind for that was actually Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I just Love that book. It's so comforting on so many different levels for me. So maybe that one, but again, this feels like an impossible question because it's like almost like asking what's your favorite food and who's your favorite author, neither of which I could actually definitively answer, and each of which changes day by day. So I'm sorry that this answer is kind of almost more of a non-answer. And question number 8 is to tag some friends. So I'm gonna tag some friends that I know enjoy cooking. I am going to tag Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space, and I'm going to tag Kate Howe, and I'm also going to tag Krista from Books and Jams. A lot of these ladies do vlogs or videos that feature some sort of meal or something that they're cooking. And so all 3 of them immediately came to mind when I did this tag. I haven't been really keeping up on tags quite as much in terms of seeing who has done what tag. So if any of you have done this tag already, I'm sorry if I am like double tagging you or whatever, but they are the people who came to mind. Well, that's it for this tag. Feel free to answer any of the questions if you would like down below, especially the last one. If you could have one meal and read one book, if you knew it was your last 24 hours, what would you choose? Does that feel like as impossible of a question for you as it does for me? Because I really struggled with that one. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish content from me, and I will see you again next time.